Dead by Daylight is a very interesting game for many audiences to enjoy. It's a game where it's filled with many traits such as entertainment, scares, thrill, and overall a casual experience to enjoy. You are thrown into a place called the Entity's Realm, and you have two options: feed the entity or escape the entity's grasp, all just to do it again for eternity. There is more, but essentially you have a very unique game where you embarrass those beneath you or play with your food. In the beginning, Dead by Daylight had started off with their own original formula of killers and survivors, and they would be releasing original characters for only 5 months before getting their first licensed character of Halloween, only to grow on from there. Over the years, Dead by Daylight has grown into a game with numerous franchises to explore, such as Saw, all the way to most recently, Resident Evil, along with the game having gained not only iconic killers, but as well as classic survivors to go along with them. With the game having unique maps, killers, and survivors, as well as infinite possibilities, why is it in a downward spiral rather than upwards? In the recent year, Dead by Daylight has received many criticisms of the game becoming very unfair and feels abandoned. Many choose to blame the developers for cutting corners and not thinking clearly when releasing updates. Some say it's RNG with pallets and loops making games they play only one-sided. Perks being too unbalanced, causing metas to be a basic requirement to have fun in the game. Many speculate the game to becoming stale, with the one and only game mode we have had for the game, and no new modes have been announced or even brought up until May of 2020. Only 7 years since its initial release. And the final part of the game is just personal opinions of many players. In this video, I'll be going over what has made the Dead by Daylight decline rather than thrive in recent months. Throughout the entirety of Dead by Daylight, we have had many updates to try and keep the game fresh and unique, by releasing new DLC and game mechanic balances to make the game feel as if it wasn't rinse and repeat. However, that's all Dead by Daylight did, and this would prove to not have been working since day one and continue to be a problem today. When Dead by Daylight first released, its new DLC killer and survivor were facing the most and still current game-breaking character in the game, the Nurse. It wasn't the perks or the map that was broken, it was how the killer was designed to be played. She was given the ability to blink throughout the match, which made the game very unplayable at times due to her being a killer with game-breaking mechanics. At one point, you could have 7 blinks, only needing 2 add-ons, but this would be changed over time. Over the years, Nurse would be the prime example of carelessness when it comes to Dead by Daylight's development over the years, and those to come, with the game introducing new perks and new mechanic balancing, which always leaned to one-sided for killer or survivor. Although the game has bad character management, when it comes to creating and balancing a character such as Nurse as a whole, or Laurie Strode's infamous Day 1 Decisive Strike, there is nothing more harmful to the game than the release of the most controversial update of all time. Day 1 Ashley J. Williams, more specifically, Medal of Man. As of right now, Medal of Man would require you to take 3 protection hits for a teammate to negate damage from injured to dying on your 4th hit. However, in the initial release, all you needed to do to activate Medal of Man was just take 3 basic hits from the killer, and Medal of Man would activate. In a later patch, PTB, the perk would be reworked into just having to take 3 protection hits or 3 safe hook rescues to activate the effect. But when it came to live, it was the Medal of Man that we know and hate today. Why was this so controversial? It's because the perk was on a character that was licensed, meaning that if you wanted the perk at all, you either had to wait for it to be in the Shrine of Secrets or buy the character with real money. And with the character being from a well-known franchise with actual voice lines, many jumped at the opportunity to buy the character as well as having a broken perk alongside it. Once the actual influx of Medal of Man being used was brought to the attention of developers, they started to nerf the perk to an oblivion, and this sparked an appropriate amount of hatred from fans, saying they released this game-changing perk to be powerful on purpose so that way they can make a quick buck and then nerf the perk later once it got out of control. When it comes to our in-game wads being wasted, it's not a big deal as the shards you use to buy the characters and perks in game for original characters DLC, knowing you can get those shards back later. However, when it comes to licensed characters having game-breaking perks or cosmetics, there's no way of gaining back those $5s and $10s you spent on them. because you can't simply get your money back from a game like this. Needless to say, these are just pinpoints of Dead by Daylight's most horrible updates, and there are plenty more of them to explore, and there are plenty of patches and updates that broke the game. And don't even get me started on patch 1.3.1D. That was just inexcusable. However, in most recent events, the newest update to come out would change the game forever, as it wasn't broken but rather heart-wrenching. I'm talking about Dead by Daylight's mid-chapter update for Roots of Dread 6.1.0, the update that would change Dead by Daylight forever. In the 6.1.0 patch, the game would change jaw-droppingly as metas were being changed for survivors and killers being buffed in unbelievable ways. The killers had received 10% speed boosts and reductions to numerous actions of theirs. Breaking pallets and gens were reduced by 10%, and hit cooldowns were reduced by 10%, making them able to attack and destroy anything faster in the game. However, the survivors faced heavy nerfs with the following. Gen times were increased from 80 seconds to 90 seconds. Speed boosts from when a survivor gets hit by the killer were reduced from 2 seconds to 1.8 seconds. And the most heavy nerf was borrowed time being made base kit to all survivors. This was followed by killer perk changes as well as survivor perk changes, with many of them being questionable and just downright stupid. Some perks got reasonable changes, such as Corrupt Intervention going away once a survivor was put into the dying state, Jolt losing its cooldown, Distortion being able to regain tokens and only hold a reasonable amount, and Hope getting its time limit removed so you can have a valuable effect to last for the remainder of the match, just to name a handful. However, this is dwarfed by the amount of bad changes made to the perks in the game. For starters, let's make one thing very clear, and that survivors have more variety and tricks up their sleeves than killers do. Killers leave everything on the table, while survivors can hide things and coordinate over a party chat or Discord call, leaving room for things that they can hide under the table. For starters, survivors have access to several blood point and passive bonus perks such as Prove Thyself, No One Left Behind, and We'll Make It, to name a few, and these perks will help you immensely throughout the game. For killers, they used to have Barbecue and Chili to gain an exceptional amount of blood points when playing the game, and the only other perk that they could have used was Hex Thrill of the Hunt, and this can be removed from the game completely. There are a handful of other killer perks that can help you gain blood points, but they're completely useless and don't help in the slightest, as having a bigger terror radius or chasing someone for a long time will help you in the game at the slightest. In terms of passive perks such as Tinker, Jolt, and Discordance, they are very limited as not many killer perks are very active as passive perks, and not many are up to par with the ones in the current metas. That being said, many of the perk reworks would cause many perks to be useless, some to be powerful and others to be great but still useless. For starters, let's focus on the killer perks. Corrupt Intervention, Colorophobia, Dark Devotion, Eruption, Jolt, Knockout, Scourge Hook Monstrous Shrine, Pop Goes the Weasel, Scourge Hook Gift of Pain, and Thanophobia are all perks that got buffs that are either extremely powerful or very useless and will continue to be used or not be used in DBD's current and future patches. The following perks will be perks receiving buffs or nerfs that will be called for, or just an absolute question of why change this. Barbecue losing the blood point gains was just unnecessary, and it's not fair for survivors to have access to numerous perks that allow them to get more bang for their buck, as well as objective assistance, while killers are stuck with useless perks like Distressing that don't help their objective. Hex No One Escapes Death was a perk that was in desperate need of change, as sometimes it made the games either extremely unfair due to camping a survivor with the totem next to it, or possible to find the correct totem, making it useless to rescue your teammate, or others trying to save the teammate and end up giving the killer more kills. So slowly revealing the location of the totem to survivors within a range is a very simple fix, and thus killers won't have to rely on a crutch perk to win, and instead have to develop skill. Hex Ruin was a perk that got a nerf that was reasonable to some degrees. I like that upon one survivor's death it'll deactivate and become a regular totem, but I don't like the regression speed nerf, as it doesn't apply pressure as it did back in the day. A survivor can run across the map and save a person on the hook, and then come back to the gem without a great amount of consequence at their end. Lethal Pursuer had received the greatest buff out of all perks reworked, as now you are able to see all survivors off the rip during the start of a trial. You will also see perk and add-on aura reading abilities 2 seconds longer, thus making you an actual Lethal Pursuer, and not being a waste of a perk slot for the remainder of the match. Overcharge is a perk rework that I have mixed feelings about, as the perk was very easy to counter before, and now it feels a little too powerful. Kicking a generator, making it regress 200% faster, and on top of that having a difficult skill check, which if failed results in a bonus loss of 5%, makes kicking the generator and looping back to the same gen very annoying for survivors, as they can repair a generator and have all the work lost only because of a killer camping the gen and kicking it over and over and over again, and chasing survivors off of it only to leave and wait for the gen to explode. Last but not least is Tinker's nerf, not only being allowed to activate once per generator as opposed to infinitely, was definitely needed, because only having one gen left for the survivors to stay on one generator for the remainder of the match to tunnel and kick survivors off of it was a change that was needed for a very long time. Scourge Hook Pain Resonance was changed for the good of everyone, but due to killer mains complaining about the nerf, it caused the perk to be changed again, and that was very saddening. Killer perk reworks were very acceptable, and some were just mind-boggling changes, but overall it was very needed. The last section of this update, and the most important one we need to discuss, is survivor perk reworks, and how many of the perks are rendered useless. The first perk that was nerfed to an oblivion was Borrowed Time, as it was made base kit and had made tunneling easier than before, as killers can wait out the 10-second timer and hit the survivor by the time they find that survivor. Another perk that got destroyed was the most essential anti-tunneling perk, which was Decisive Strike. This perk got its stun reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds and made it useless, let alone deactivating when all gens are completed. One of the most deserving but weirdest changes is the Dead Hard nerf, as the perk rewarded bad players with a free escape and the ability to not take damage with invincibility frames. To counter it, they removed the iframes as well as the dash for distance and gave you a weird dab with the endurance status effect. The worst offender was Self-Care, as it was receiving an unnecessary nerf where many people asked for a buff rather than a nerf, due to it taking so long to use. Behavior responded by making it take even longer and removed the medkit efficiency bonus, making it the worst perk in the game, if not a top 5 contender. Those perks received bad nerfs, while these perks got great buffs, such as Lightweight removing scratch marks 3 seconds faster, Saboteur revealing Scourge Hook auras, Lucky Break regaining more usage as you heal others, and Botany Knowledge making you heal others faster. With all these balances and reworks, this definitely changed the meta of the game, with some perks still being used, such as Borrowed Time, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and Barbecue and Chili. One answer still remains though. Is the game survivor-sided, or is the game killer-sided? This all depends on the playstyle of either side, but there's an easy answer based on the overall look of the game. The answer is, the game is killer-sided. But why? We'll be tackling that answer in our next video, but for now this will be the end, and I will have to make this a two-parter unfortunately. But in the next video we'll be talking more about playstyles and how that might be why Dead by Daylight is suffering, rather than updates being the reason why Dead by Daylight is suffering. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the video. I do consider that you leave a comment and leave your opinions down below, and do consider liking the video and sharing with your friends, so that way we can get this word out more. Maybe some change can be done about it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.